All right. Good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to today's panel discussion brought to you by the HR Association of India. At HREI, our mission is to create platforms that connect, inspire, and empower professionals through meaningful conversations and shared learning. I'm Neha Jagnani, and it's my privilege to be your host for this conversation. Our theme for today is Future Ready CSR, integrating tech, talent, and sustainability. Through this discussion, we aim to explore how organizations are reimagining CSR to stay relevant, scalable, and impactful while aligning business goals with societal needs. Throughout this session, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat window and we'll make sure that they reach the panel. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator for the session, Mr. Satyajit Gupta. Satyajit Gupta is a senior legal leader with extensive experience in corporate law, M&A, governance, compliance, and ESG strategy. As VP and Associate General Counsel at EXL, he leads India Legal and Global CSR. He has worked with top law firms and actively contributes to global legal forums, mentoring, and thought leadership. He's passionate about building high performing legal teams aligned with the business growth. Without further ado, I now invite Mr. Satyajit to take it over through this insightful discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you, HREI, for setting this up. And, I think it's a fantastic topic, integrating tech, talent, and sustainability. And I'm sort of very fortunate to have this fantastic superlative panel today. I think before we obviously get into the questions and get some, I'm sure, really relevant insights, I just want to introduce the panel. Starting, obviously no order of priority, but obviously wanted to introduce Shipra Sharma. She's a seasoned leader with 23 plus years in technology, sustainability, and social impact. Currently, she's the CSR leader at IBM India. She has been driving projects in education sustainability. Previously, she has worked at Microsoft and LTI on climate and social initiatives. What many of you may not know is that she's a former IF Indian Air Force officer. She's known for strong leadership and recognized as a global expert and thought leader in impact. We're very happy to have you, Shipra. Warm welcome to you. Uh, Next, moving on to Pawan, who's going to be joining us in a few minutes, but he's a CSR and ESG professional with over a decade of experience leading impactful programs in healthcare, education, and rural development. He's an AVP at Kotak Mahindra Life Insurance. He drives large-scale initiatives, partnerships, and sustainable interventions, aligning business goals with community needs to deliver measurable, inclusive, long-term social impact. So I think we look forward to having Pawan very soon. Next, I move to Dr. Ganesh Raman. Dr. Ganesh Raman is the Deputy CIO and Global Head of Internal Audit and the CSR Trustee. With academic roles at MSU, RUS, and Shastra University. He holds a PhD from Indian Institute of Science, and he has multiple gold medals in engineering, management, and accounting. So we have a very sharp forensic mind here. So we warmly welcome you, Dr. Ganesh Ramanji. His experience spans GE Healthcare, Vistian, and Lucas TVS. He's bringing for us today industry leadership and academic excellence. So very warm welcome to you, sir. Next, and of course, last, and I always wanted to say it, but never the least, is Anurag Pratap Singh Ji. He's a CSR leader with extensive experience driving large-scale social impact programs. He's the head of CSR at Capgemini and leads initiatives in education, skilling, and sustainability. With cross-sectoral experience, he excels in strategy, stakeholder alignment, and scalable program design, reaching millions through impactful, innovation-driven development interventions. Dare I say that maybe now billions, because he's also established very superb partnerships in this space. And for us, whenever we have any questions around organizations to work with, he's a veritable encyclopedia. So very warm welcome to you, Anurag, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much to this fantastic panel. I'm sorry, I think for some of you, I've shortened the introductions because you guys have a lot of, it can go on, we could have gone on and on, but I think wanted to dive straight into the questions. So if I can start, I think the first question I would like to pose to Shipra, and the question is that how can corporate leaders use digital tools to provide the last mile person with more agency and better access to opportunities?
Yes. Thank you, Satyajit, and thank you, HRAI, for inviting me and sharing my thoughts. So, I think one of the major things that technology has brought on board is to meet people where they are instead of, imagining them to be in a certain place and then serving them. And so for CSR professionals and people in the development space, that has really been transformational. We have an opportunity here to really democratize learning, and that is something which can reach last mile. It can reach learners anytime, anywhere, and that's the era I think we are living today in. And I could take an example of one of my major programs, that is IBM Skills Build, where we are not only creating content which helps bridging the talent divide that we have today, in terms of where the academia is and where corporates are, and also hosting it on a platform and providing free of cost. So there are more than 1,000 courses that are available to learners anytime, anywhere. And that starts with high schools. We also have slightly higher level courses for university students. They can even download more than 700 IBM software and learn hands-on. So it's not only stopping at a point where they learn these courses, but even experimenting their ideas. And then there is anyone, 18 plus, we call it adult learner. So anyone can access and learn it. So what's really happening here is a learner undergoes a course of their choice. There are also AI-based prompts that can help them, depending on the kind of learning they would like to take from the platform, because it's easy to get lost. It's like Netflix, where sometimes you go there and you're trying to search what to watch. You've already spent 30 minutes. So you could get insights in terms of even learning. And then what really happens is the beautiful part of helping these students pick up projects. And then IBM employees go and mentor these students in terms of creating any idea that they have into a project. So that's really my favorite part. And that is what really I believe that creates agency. Because what do you call as agency? Having the confidence to put across your point, and also to the ability to decide. And what I have seen in my journey at IBM Skills Build is when these learners are putting into application their learning, and then there is an interaction with an IBMer, and then they are asked to present their projects. That is what really creates agency. And this whole process, and especially when I talk of the 18 plus segment or universities, is what then opens doors for opportunity. So if we look at the whole value chain, right from undergoing something as basic, some of them really take 30 minutes, 2 hours, to a learning pathway of 30 hours, 60 hours, or even more. What happens in the process is a learner is not only developing workplace skills, but even emerging technologies. So in India, we have a target to skill 5 million people by 2030 in AI, cybersecurity, quantum, but also helping these learners in workplace skills, because that alone will not be enough when we talk about all of the things that you mentioned, Satyajit. So if I were to wrap it up, what we have seen in this program today, it runs in more than 160 countries. There are more than 16 million learners who have undertaken courses from Skills Build. And overall, across the globe, we target to hit 30 million. So it's a massive program, which is wide as deep as a learner would want to go to the last mile. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Shipra. And I think, of course, we are, we're all cognizant of IBM Skills Build, and thanks so much for sharing, I think, your experience. And I know a lot of the nonprofits we work with definitely do sort of use it, and it's sort of a fairly standard I don't want to say gold standard or anything else because I don't want to be seen as endorsing any particular sort of platform, but definitely something that's used across the board uh, and definitely I think when you go out and you have something which is sort of stamped or certified by an IBM or by a. So I'll just quickly, I think, sort of take a try to segue into the next question, which is to Dr. Ganesh Sharman. So I think the question is, in what ways can predictive analytics transform CSR from a compliance-driven reactive model into a strategic driver of long-term sustainable growth? So we'd love to have your thoughts on this.
Yeah, it's thank you very much, Satyajit. It's a pretty nice question. So one thing which I am always trying to look at it, the CSR and the ESG space down the line, like, okay, all I'm seeing is there will be a very, very thin line and then there will be a good fusion which is going to happen so that like, okay, all the CSR can be channelized in making sure that the impact getting measured on the ESG, all the elements which are coming out. When we are going to look at it, so the first and foremost thing which I'm trying to look at is like, okay, why we have to be predictive about the future. It will make us to think about the future. It will not make us to think about the past. Many times current, the nature that the way we are operating is, there is a problem, can I go and then do something about it and then fix it? Rather, the anticipation of the issues and then what are all going to be the potential issues of the future, we are not yet have thought about it. The moment we are putting ESG framework, in my view, then that anticipation, I can see what should be the future state, what is going to be the future state, and what is the impact that I can create. That is the area which can really benefit the society in the long run. One thing which I always try to look at is, the government is trying to govern rather than putting a lot of regulations in managing the supply and demand on the CSR front. While the ESG, they have put the framework, still that impact measurements are not set. The moment we know a good amount of impact measurement which is set, those areas can be a target for us to design the programs that can really deliver. So trying to work backwards in terms of understanding that impact and then designing the program and then predicting it like, okay, hey, this is the right impact that I'm going to create, and then channelizing the fund from the corporates, the supply side, and then make sure that the demand which is going to be there, which is going to be the impact, is getting measured. So the triangulation of the supply and demand and governing it rather than regulating it is going to be the way things should progress. The impact measurement will create more predictive potential. That predictive potential will get into the program design. That program design will benefit more masses. And then rather than making us one philosophy in our CSR we always follow is, we don't want to give fish to everyone, rather we will teach them fishing. So that way, how many people whom we are going to get into the active, to play an active role rather than being a passive recipient, that is also the way that we have to drive the impact area, so that we create more and more people coming out of that who are always in the need of something. So that kind of a prediction and the impact is what that we should be concentrating on. And especially the sustainability, that is also another thing. The India is the third world largest startup hubs. How many startup hubs can really come out with the socially impactful projects? And especially concentrating on the ESG elements, all those things will be the better prediction, which they can really target the right impact area and then deliver it to our country or across the globe also. So there has to be a good triangulation of the government effort with the supply and demand. And I feel that the startups can really play a role in terms of making it much more uh, the impact felt, and then so that they can focus more on the societal needs rather than running behind investors.
Thank you so much, Ganesha Manji. I think that's a very, very insightful response. And I want to also welcome, I think, Pawan, if I'm not wrong, who's joined us. I saw him joining. So, Pawan, do put on your video if you can, so that we are able to.
Thank you. Thank you, Satyajit. Yeah.
Sure. So, I think for the next question, we'll go to Anurag sir. And Anurag sir, I think the question is, as we integrate AI and automation into CSR tracking, how can leaders ensure that technology enhances rather than replaces the critical human empathy required for community-led initiatives? This is, I know, a very important topic for you, close to your heart. So over to you.
I always feel, thank you, Satyajit, for asking this question. This is very important as the whole world is debating on how AI is going to, what is called, influence, impact our life. But I've been saying this for, I'll say, number of years now that tech and especially now AI should never replace empathy. Its role is to protect and amplify it, period. As leaders, we all try to integrate AI and automation into CSR tracking. The key is to be very clear about what tech can do and what human must always do. And when I look at all this particular question, I feel first use AI for skill and discipline, not for judgment. And this is one particular mistake that we all are doing. I always feel that AI can certainly help us collect data, track outcome, flag risk across communities, across projects at scale. But decisions about priorities, decisions about trade-off, decisions about community need must remain human-led. It should be a human being who should be taking call on those. Empathy should not be, must not be automated. And that's one particular mistake that sometimes we have started doing it. Second, I feel keep communities at the center, not the dashboard. As a CSR leaders, we have this particular, I'd say, sometime we are in hurry or sometime we get confused also. We feel that dashboard numbers looks very exciting there, but while doing that, we shift human being or communities from the central space. We should keep communities at the center, and the tech should listen more than it speaks. It should not what is called start dictating us. AI can surface patterns, but communities must define what impact actually means for them, because they are the one who are going to get, I'd say, impacted, influenced by changes happening there. We as a leader need to ensure feedback loop remain two-way, and it should not what is called be uh, outsourced to take that. It should remain personal there. And then third is free people to focus on relationship. I always feel that when automation reduces manual reporting and compliance related work, field team, people like us, partners, can spend more time engaging with communities, building trust, understanding context, co-create solutions, listening more, trying to relate with challenges that people, communities, society, all of us are facing. And finally, leadership accountability matters the most. The empathy is ultimately, I feel that it's a leadership choice. It's a choice that you, me, Shipra, Pankaj, we all make. Leaders' role must become the model during the site visits, conversations with beneficiaries, and direct engagements. The data can be the guide. Data cannot substitute the human being there. And that's one particular mistake that I always request people to avoid this. I always feel that when AI will handle the data, is handling the data, and people should own the relationship. The data should, in number of ways, to should help us manage the relationship there. And in this particular space, I feel CSR becomes both is then will become both scalable and it will also become deeply human there. And that's where tech can strengthen rather than dilute community-led impacts there. So I feel empathy is very, very human-centric there. Do not, I'll say, outsource it to tech there. The moment we'll do that particular thing, we'll lose the very nuanced value of what human being can bring in there. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, thank you. And this is a great, intervention. So I think let tech be an enhancer, tech be something to help rather than sort of overshadowing emotions, overshadowing empathy, overshadowing, and I think the human element ultimately, especially in a space like CSR, especially in a space like when we're talking about development, talking about communities. So I think that's extremely insightful, and I think very important to keep that in our radar and make sure that we don't get sort of dis- distracted by dashboard statistics and all of that. I just want to, sort of, I think this is a question which will throw in some interesting, another interesting area. So over to, I think, Pawan. Pawan, the question for you is that, and very, very apt, with younger generations prioritizing purpose alongside compensation, uh, how can CSR programs be redesigned to act as a core strategy for talent retention and rather than just a initiative on the side or or a regulatory imperative, let's say. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on this, and I think that brings in the talent side of this panel also.
Correct. Thanks, Satyajit, and HRI team for this opportunity. First of all, the very right question that you asked, the younger generation, this Gen Zs, where they more care about how they have been treated rather than us, which are 90s kids who bother about every single things in their life and they got stuck with most of the stuff. While Gen Zs are absolutely dynamic in their nature and they 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 don't want to stay longer, but they want to be feel accomplished, they want to be feel relatable, they want to feel accompanied by the surroundings wherever they are working with. And as much as I have worked in the last decade with a variation of age groups in a different portfolios, be it healthcare, be it livelihood, be it education, the one thing I have realized is it's not about redesigning but thinking in a longer term. So I'll tell you the example. I was fortunate to work in the Tata legacy for almost half of my career trajectory. And they don't think for the today and tomorrow. They are thinking 7 years down the line, 10 years down the line, what kind of generations they want to build upon. So they start incubating the children right from the secondary education state where they can impart the skill, which will be the futuristic skills put together. So one very core element is to not think for today, think for 5 years, 10 years down the line and the CSR horizons. I know it's very hard in the CSR space put together where CSR people and including me look for the very tangible outcome even within the 3 months, 1 year or 2 years down the line. And 3 years down the line, they start thinking to shut the project or to conclude and start looking for something else put together. Right. While at the other hand, there are Tatas and there are other philanthropic people who are investing in long-term projects which start the investment from the secondary education level and goes beyond graduation level itself. So that I consider the very instrumental part in the CSR where the industry should look into how there can be a longer term investments in generations. That is one. Secondly, along with the traditional curriculum in education, where these Gen Zs have a right now in the present time has a complete flexibility of choosing what they want to study. In our time, we could not study the commerce with the science. We could not study the biology with the engineering, right? Those combinations were not available. While in today's era, there's a huge flexibility. So can we have that flexibility in the CSR programs also where if a person is interested in music, I don't know how many programs have been run around teaching a music to the student. I have not heard any single program so far in my last decade of career that somebody is investing on the person's musical ability to be increased or somebody sending students for India's Got Talent sort of stuff. We are all going on a very traditional threshold of giving traditional educations put together. So that second pillar is adopting a flexibility as per the current era's demand and the futuristic skill. I find these two things are very important. And in the Kotak Live, we started thinking of going beyond one step ahead. We used to think earlier like, okay, it's a 1 year program, we should only do it 1 year. But now we have started thinking 3 years down the line, what will be happening. So that's my submission around it, how we can align everything in context of the younger generations incorporation in the CSR, and how we can redesign and rethink the whole bit. At least we can start taking a smaller steps towards it. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pawan. I think that's extremely insightful, and I think the examples you shared have been, are also very, very interesting. And I think the takeaway from this is obviously that, look, don't just uh, we don't just focus the CSR program in solving, one particular point that, hey, can I make the CSR programs more palatable to Gen Zs? But if you keep it more programmatic in nature, if you have a long-term strategy, perhaps it will anyways act as a core strategy for talent enhancement, talent retention, reduce attrition. I think we've seen that as well. So thanks so much. Over to, I think I wanted to sort of, my next question goes to Shipra, and I think, uh, and again, probably Shipra, looking at your particular sort of uh, core sort of specialization and core expertise around the space. The question is that what specific industry aligned skills should companies develop within their workforce to bridge the gap between having a degree, an academic degree, and being day one ready? And of course, we're trying to connect that with social innovation as well. So over to you, and would love to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Satyajit. And I always find this question very, very interesting. The workforce, the students that are entering the workforce in the next 1 or 2 years are the students who saw COVID at the time of their board exams. And as they're entering the workforce, they are seeing AI transformation. So when you talk about day one readiness, what it is today and what it will be next year or maybe 2 to 5 years, it's all going to be very, very different. So that brings us to the question, how do we really make sure that our learners are ready from day one, or at least are able to sustain it? And that's true not only for the younger people who are entering the workforce. By the way, that's true for all of us as well who are in the workforce. How do we really sustain? Because everything around us is transforming so fast. And so if I were to call out to my mind what is really the top skill, which everybody needs today, is the ability to learn and to unlearn. So adaptability, to my mind, is really something which it cannot be taught to anybody. I think it's I would say it's harder to teach it through a formal structure, but that is the responsibility of all of us here who are in a space to make a difference, to convey that message. So when the learners are out, they are very happy, they have a degree, and they have specialized in a certain thing, and suddenly they realize is the topic they have studied in has been is doesn't exist anymore or has been taken over by AI. So I think that's really the main challenge for everyone who's working in the space of skilling. And how do we really bridge the supply of academia to the demand of the industry? So that's the second thing I would say is knowledge. Theoretical knowledge alone cannot take people anywhere. The way a lot of us in the room have grown up is learning in a certain way and producing it in a question paper and getting assessment for that. Unless you are able to practically use those skills, you may be able to enter through an interview in a company, but are you going to sustain it? That's the real question. So degrees really they matter, but do they matter as much? And I think that is where it's also important to keep yourself updated on what's really happening. It's not always possible for busy people to, undergo a structured program. You leave your job and then you pursue an academic degree. But then there are so many other options available of micro credentials, of remote learning. And when I was answering my previous question, referring to, having learning anytime, anywhere. So that's really the second thing, that, you keep yourself updated and learn to apply it. Otherwise, today, an AI can generate the best CVs for you and help you land an interview. The third thing I would say, and Anurag also alluded to it, that human skills cannot really replace AI. What's really important is you definitely need the technical skills for whatever job role people are appearing for or aspiring to. But definitely, how do you bring in that human element to it? Maybe AI will get there somewhere. But today, I think that's really important to make sure that the data sets, and I always say this, the strength of AI is the level and the value of the data that is feeding it. So is the data set covering the whole lot of people that you're trying to solve for? So always question, where is your information coming from? And, is it helping solve the problem of the last mile? So I think these things that way are really very connected. And these are general skills that everybody needs today to be successful, either if you're already in the workforce or as a student, wanting to be ready from day one onwards. It is the responsibility of all of us to then provide that infrastructure, which is very, very difficult for the government to transform overnight. We can partner with the government. So the Ministry of Education is very, very open to partnerships. Ministry of Skilling, they opened an entire opportunity for companies to apply their courses and then for students to get credit, because they understand it's very, very difficult to transform the entire education system today to make that student ready from day one. And companies today run so many internal training programs, so much of content is already out there. Why can't it be opened up for the learners at large? And so there are companies who have applied. NCVET is a body which, is giving that accreditation. And you can actually apply for it and help learners get it job ready skills and be ready from day one. And lastly, I would say this particular problem that we are all trying to solve is never going to be solved in isolation. And so this has to be uh, a an initiative that is solved with an ecosystem approach. So we do it a bit as companies, the government does it bit as with the scale and the expenditure, because all of our expenditure combined is just a fraction of what the government spends on this particular problem. And then there's a not-for-profit sector and the learner themselves. And it's very important to take the teacher. So I have a lot to say, but I think on a high level, this is what's really important on how do we learn and then be ready to unlearn to be ready for the next chapter.
Thank you, Shubhra. I think we could feel the passion, and definitely this sort of hits our, again, the talent side of things. I will now take, I think, just to sort of make sure that I'm able to cover the rest of the questions on the panel, I'll probably move a little faster and go to Dr. Ganeshwaraman. And my question, sir, is that what governance frameworks would you feel are most effective at helping boards balance the, I suppose, one way of it would be to call it attention, or the fine balance between immediate business priorities and long-term imperative for sustainability. So I think over to you, sir, to share your thoughts. And I think you're muted, so yeah.
Thank you, Satyajit. I think it's a very nice question. One thing when it comes to board, I think I had the opportunity to present a couple of times to board, and as well as had the opportunity to sit with some of the help some of the startups in terms of doing the preparation. When it comes to the question of probably if at all we will have to relook at it, and then it will be a very tough fact probably that we need to be prepared. I can ask this question open. what do you think the percentage of time board spends on sustainability related components? In terms of, if say, imagine the board meeting is for 2 hours, and what percentage of time you think the board spends on sustainability? Any guess? Any wild guess?
Anybody wants to guess? Anurag sir?
I've stopped doing wild guesses.
What percentage?
5%.
Good. Anyone else? Pavan or Shipra?
I'll go with the 5 to 10%.
It's a very
Sorry?
small fraction of their time.
Absolutely. That's what, like, okay, I just wanted to say, right? Like, okay, that's the one thing which I wanted to highlight. Like, okay, if we have to look at long term, then even in the short term, like, okay, in the available time, if you're not able to give the 5%, where is the effort? So probably typically most of the time gets into in terms of financials, how much we have accomplished, like, okay, what was a quarter? Looks like, okay, all of us have started living by quarter and then trying to figure it out how we are going to get into the next year and probably planning for those components. It is a really a tough thing to ask in terms of, hey, can you look at the sustainability components? Like, okay, typically it ends up with, hey, have you sent the report? Once again, the checklist item. The ESG sustainability report is there. It boils down to that extent, some of the cases that I have seen. From there, if we have to come out, what is that we need to do? So nowadays, MCA has come out with a lot of uh, uh, checklist items once again for the directors and the independent directors and everything, right? So with all those things coming in, how to maximize the thought process of the board to move beyond financials and move beyond uh, setting the goals in terms of the operational efficiencies and then trying to take them to a sustainability side, that will definitely needs a good amount of investment from the board members onwards. They will have to be prepared in terms of, I'm going to shape the future of this organization. I'm going to not only this organization, the organization where it is, to their customers, to the stakeholders of this organization. So that broader view needs to come in. Currently, that is not a little, like, okay, while we anticipate that the board should have the time for it, currently or unfortunately, it is not there. That's the hard reality. It is typically like, okay, some of the startups, if you see, like, okay, it is all, uh, sorry, don't quote me anywhere. Like, okay, I can say like, it is a paper driven board meeting has happened. It is a report generated by a chartered accountant. It's a hard reality. We are talking about a sustainability. The board should take the ownership, means that is where we have to get those practices getting uh, set. So the board should start like, okay, the board should meet and then the board should think about in terms of give time for the future. Shaping the future requires like, okay, how I can definitely, the ESG framework is a fantastic framework for India to start and identifying the areas, how this organization align this organization goals towards which are all the areas that we can impact, and then have those deliveries and then design the programs of sustainability and CSR, uh, targeting them closer towards those particular impact areas would really help. So the first and foremost is a actual reflection in terms of the board availability for ESG. The second one is in terms of setting the direction on the ESG. Then third, building the programs that will create those impact and then having a metrics around it and then measuring it, measuring the effectiveness of it. That's what I would think. Otherwise, currently the expectation from all of us is a board can do wonders, but board is not even spending the required amount of time is my personal view on this area. That may be a hard reality. Probably there may be exceptions to it. I wish more exceptions are there. And that's my views on this topic.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ganeshwaraman. And I think, of course, that sort of, while of course it is a pragmatic, realistic view. I think we need to obviously, I suppose, create that awareness, or probably we hope that sustainability will take up more of their time. But I think in the short term, I don't know whether it'll change. But yeah, I think awareness of reality is important. Moving on to my next question, it's to Anurag sir, and I think again, I think one of a topic which you speak a lot about. So, but again, bringing the question to you, how can leaders leverage blockchain and AI to move beyond greenwashing, right, and provide stakeholders with real-time evidence-based data on environmental, social outcomes? So, wanted to get your thoughts on this, sir.
Thank you for asking this question, and I know that this is recorded, so I'm like, I always feel that AI and blockchain will help us in what is called bringing in that particular shift from promise to proof. Because we have been saying number of things, but number of ways AI and blockchain can help us get the proof of what we are saying, and that will, in number of ways, will help us prevent the greenwashing, which is becoming a kind of norm there. The start, if I have to start this particular argument, I'll say blockchain in so many ways help you with trust. It creates a secure, tamper-proof record of environmental and social data, whether it's emission, energy use, CSR fund utilization, you name it. And if you apply that particular thing, it will help you track that auditable trail available for you. And once the data is captured, it cannot be changed. So and that's the advantage there. If you change it also, it will record it. So this will bring in a huge amount of credibility with the stakeholder there. So when you're presenting it, people will then relate with, and they'll feel that, hey, now I'm getting something which was recorded and which was not changed midway just because the numbers were not suiting people over capturing or were now presenting it. Secondly, I also feel that AI helps you in understanding impact. It analyzes the data to show what is actually changing the ground. So, and then it helps you not to bring in personal interpretation there. So, like how the emissions are getting reduced, or how students are learning better, or whether the livelihood is improving. It so many ways it separates the intent from the real outcome. So it manages the rhetoric and brings in the real outcome in front of you in as precise manner as one can look at. Together, both of them, they enable real transparency. They bring in so when we were talking about reports and all, so where people make those broader claims, and I've always said that if we start compiling all those claims that people have made, India should be and must be a developed nation. So the moment you start deploying AI and a blockchain, they'll we'll start sharing real-time evidence-based insight rather rhetorics there through dashboards, verifiable metrics that client, investors, communities, regulator, anyone can see for themselves. They don't have to what is called those evidences will be there. Those promises won't be there. And last, I feel that this also changes leaders' behavior there, or leadership behavior there, because you in so many ways, I feel that ESG stops being a communication exercise and becomes a management discipline. Leaders can see early what is working, what is not working. You can be ruthless with closing down things, sunsetting things which are not working, and then and you can also do course correction rather than celebrating intentions there. There are too many people celebrating intentions. There are too many people saying that, hey, I want to do this, I have done this. And if I start compiling this particular thing, and that's what I've said in a number of places, that India should be a developed nation list rather than a developing nation. So I always feel that AI explains the impact and blockchains proves the data. And at the moment you bring both of these things together, sustainability moves from storytelling to accountability there. So it's no more about what I think has happened, but it's all about evidences about things that has actually happened there. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great, um, that's a great insight. I think also interestingly, we gave you two questions. When one you had to actually talk that talk about technology shouldn't overshadow. Another one, interestingly, where actually there's a point or there's a specific input for technology where it can actually
Yeah.
impact, right? It can
So
create
I
that.
said there that you can tech cannot replace empathy there. So that is the function that human beings should play. But human beings should also not start narrating everything from, I'll say, the lens of what I feel has happened there. Your storytelling should have clear-cut data, which is verifiable and auditable there. It cannot be
Right.
based on what I think is right. We start presenting it.
So there's space for tech and there's space for empathy,
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
don't
Exactly.
don't interchange those two. I think that's a
Yeah,
good point.
exactly.
And thanks so much. And over to, of course, our you know uh, last question. I think that I had on my list. So wanted to move to Pawan. So Pawan, I think the question again, I think for you is around volunteerism, volunteering, and the question is, and of course, feel free to take this the way you'd like to. So that's, I mean, my question is basically framed as that: how can we move employee volunteerism beyond just showing up, right? More towards skill-based contribution. And an example that I think was part of my question was, and maybe focused on IT industry, but you can definitely change it around. Was the example was, you could have an IT team build a website for NGOs. HR team could help them develop a talent management strategy, things like that. So how can we move volunteering from, just being a symbolic token affair to something which is more skill based and probably in some way also beyond just being a one-off affair, but keeping, make it more integrated and more sustainable. So what do you, Pawan?
Correct. Yeah. So Satyajit, this particular topic is very touched to me. Why so? I'll tell you that reason as well. First and foremost, I think we should sensitize the people about this word itself, the volunteering. It should come from within. It's not something that you can enforce on your employees to continuously do anything over and above their BAU and a KRA, where there's no reward and penalty mechanism put together. That is one thing, because I have seen every corporate is struggling to ensure that all of their employees participate in the volunteering activity by some of the other means they are trying to put in place, either through the existing CSR partners or onboarding very heavy, costly NGOs otherwise to run the show. Per unit cost of investment on the volunteering is not giving the expected outcomes most of the time. Rather, you invest that money for more genuine cause, rather, I'll say. Right. So the first thing is I definitely want to build the sensitivity around it. Second, to ensure there's some additional rewards for the person who is doing something beyond their career. Introduces some of the other reward mechanism. That reward may be as small as giving a paid half day leave to go and do the social work, not to be entitled for anything over and above, but to ensure that the person has the mental space that okay, this is a paid space in which I can do the social work and can contribute for the society, and it will be reflected as my regular work as well, and it will not be affecting my regular work as well, right? Otherwise he has to struggle most of the time in their regular BAU and then have to go for the volunteering as well. That becomes the second most important element. Third, obviously, we should get away from pushing the volunteering what we are designing from. It should be inherently from the expertise that is already lying with the industry person or with the institution who is organizing it. Quoting the example, as you rightly mentioned, instead of IT, I'd like to talk about BFSI. So we are a life insurance industry. I'm a part of a larger banking sector as well. So we at Kotak Group only focusing on one core element of the volunteering, which is financial literacy for all age groups horizon. We want to build the financial literacy for as small as a children studying in the sixth standard to the as older as the person who is 90 years, 95 years old, who is retired. How we can do that shift and how we can move that needle from a or to have the very basic financial literacy, right? So if over and above, if person is individualistically can deliver music sessions, English sessions, can teach mathematics in their free time and all those stuff, we should definitely think in those approaches while giving an opportunity. Second very challenge which I see is the availability of the avenues which people usually look in and around of their corporate offices. So let's say, for example, my office is in BKC. My employee won't be traveling more than 10 kilometers to go and do the volunteering for the slums in Thane or slums somewhere else where there's actual need to do the volunteering. They look something that we can do within the office, and sometimes they call it volunteering, which is very disheartening most of the time. And honestly speaking, I also do the same. Sometimes I also have to put across some numbers, but it's really disheartening. So we should definitely go beyond the corporate offices, link it with the actual need of the community, even spending a time with the old age home orphanages. Even if you do not have the skills, you may do not contributing very significantly, but if you'll spend the time with all orphanage, old age homes, children suffering from the cancer. There are lots of centers around. Giving any sort of help that will definitely help it out. But I want to request to all the corporates that please stop enforcing volunteering on your employees. It's not part of their KRA. Why they should do it until they are inherently motivated to do it. And the person who is inherently motivated, they are already doing it. They must not be telling you that I'm doing it. There are lots of employees in our company as well who go for the regular blood donations, but they don't want anyone to let it know, right? So that is also the cause. So I think first to create the sensitization, second to create the more avenues where there's a need, right? That's the core. Instead of skilling along, obviously the skilling is important. What you have, that only you can donate, right? So that is the core element. But we should go one step back and think about all these things as well. Then only we can make more meaningful volunteering as a culture of the any institution.
Thanks so much, Pawan. I think definitely whatever you said made sense. And I think I'll take two things from there. One is, of course, around skill-based volunteering, but the other one is volunteering per se, right? I mean, it has to come, I mean, the meaning of the word obviously is derived from the fact that you do it from within. So while I think the frameworks can be created by the company and opportunities can be given by the company, uh, various companies have also created additional things like giving volunteering time off and various other things. But ultimately, it should not be driven just as a mandate, but it should be more as a facilitative approach. So I think definitely appreciate that. I think we are, maybe 3 minutes away, but I think there are a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if any of you want to pick any of these up. I just wanted to um, check in, I think, on there is one from Disha which seems interesting. It talks about how can mid-sized companies with limited resources still build future-ready CSR strategies without access to advanced tech or large teams. I wonder if any of the panelists wants to volunteer to answer.
It's also a very relative term, no? Which what you'll call it a mid-sized, and what will be the CSR budget there. So if I even take it, I'll say, for example, if your CSR outlay is once a year, for example, and there are multiple options that you can pick it up, and which are open source. There are solutions developed by bigger companies with a bigger outlay on CSR, and those solutions are, as they are developed through CSR fund, are available free of cost there. So use those things. And I've been saying this in multiple spaces that collaboration is the key there. You cannot do everything on its own. CSR overall complete outlay is 35,000 crore. 35,000 crore cannot solve any of the issue that India is facing. So every place, I guess Anurag need to collaborate with Satyajit. Satyajit need to collaborate with Shipra. Shipra need to work with Pawan. Pawan need to work with Ganesh. And we all need to collaborate there. Smaller, bigger, all those nomenclature need to somewhere go away there. There will be some play that branding, legal, ethics need to come in there, but that's how we need to work on this.
Makes a lot of sense.
I
I know we are,
I
yeah,
firmly
I think,
agree with what Pratapji said. Yeah, but this collaboration is only the key is at, at, at the other side of the coin, it's only the restriction as well. Where this branding legalities comes into the picture, people lose the enthusiasm of the collaboration put together. And there's too
No,
much formalities needs to be followed.
no, we are doing it. We are doing it for the last 10 years or so. We work with multiple corporates there. You need to simplify it. The moment we simplify it, the trust will be
Correct,
there with
correct.
each other.
correct. Correct. So I think, look, this is obviously this question itself and collaboration can be a topic for a new, completely fresh panel. But I think I would like to thank all the panelists. We are at the top of the hour. Thank all the panelists for sharing their
Thank you.
thoughts. We covered some very interesting ones. And over to you, Neha, if you want to just end the session.
Thank you so much, Satyajit, and our esteemed panel for your insights today, and of course, the audience for joining us today. We hope you leave with fresh ideas to reflect upon and apply. And we look forward to having you with us in the upcoming sessions as well. Our next panel discussion is on work is changing faster than humans. Are organizations designing for reality or legacy? It's scheduled on 7th of May between 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. We look forward to having there. Until then, stay inspired and stay connected. Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
It was a
Thank
pleasure being
you.
with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
folks.
Thank you.